Thomas and Friends is back for an all-new TV series slated for September this year. With the 80th anniversary last year marking the end of the poorly received All Engines Go reboot, fans like myself wondered what was next for Thomas, especially when a new project for 2026 was confirmed. In December of 2025, many pictures leaked of new diecast and motorized items. I remember wondering myself if these were for the upcoming Thomas movie directed by Mark Forster, or for an entirely new TV series.
All the new toys and the new TV series that are coming out soon.
When a new TV series was confirmed, and a bit of footage shown, our hopes for Thomas's grand return were extremely high. Then, a set was found in stores, then engines, and soon it was evident that the toys for the series released much earlier than expected. Today I'll be going in depth and scrutinizing the pros and cons of one of these new pieces of Thomas merchandise. We will be reviewing, comparing to older versions and alternate versions, and testing this new member of my collection on different tracks. So come join me as we dive into the tank engine dimension and explore what Thomas & Friends in 2026 has in store for us. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel. If you didn't see my most recent video, well, what are you thinking? Go watch it, go. I was recently able to find many of the brand new and mostly improved 2026 Thomas & Friends items. The specific store I visited had many of the Wave 1 products, which included several sets, motorized engines, and of course the brand new diecast engines. And I'm sure you can probably tell, today we'll be looking at, unboxing, reviewing, and comparing the brand new Henry. Wow, where to begin? Now, I want to make it clear that I was very hard on this packaging style when it was first revealed, and that was mostly due to the renders themselves, because at the time, nobody knew if they were AI or not. I'm pretty sure it was confirmed that they weren't. So let's just talk about the packaging itself then, because, oh my gosh, it's a huge step up. I'll throw up some pictures on screen, but compared to what was coming before it, this looks worlds better. Like, this looks like something Ertl would make, and we will compare it to the Ertl version later. So just looking at it here, I love the track. Like, this seems to be, this new show, hopefully it's good, seems to be focusing much more on the railway aspect, which makes sense because All Agents Go failed miserably and they were jumping off the tracks. So let's start with the obvious thing most people are conflicted about, the colored irises. On Henry, I don't think it looks terrible, but I would have much preferred the black eyeballs like we've been getting for years now, for like 80 years now. So, I mean, it'll take some getting used to. I got used to it on Thomas. Once we review Thomas, I'll talk more about that, but his face is starting to remind me a lot more of his season 2, like, toothless smile face. I don't really know how to describe it. So, for Henry, like, he's definitely CGI. We know Henry in the Brenner era and sometimes the Nitrogen era was pretty wimpy, and they didn't treat him the way he was supposed to be treated. So we don't know if that's the way he'll be in this new show, but he looks a lot more powerful here. Like, Henry was very disrespected. We know that. Stuff like this. Let's get out of here. I love that they're saying it's new for 2026. That shows buyers, parents, children that this is a new series, that everything is starting again from the ground up. This is a new canon, and we're just going to go from there. The new Thomas & Friends logo, it's fine. I mean, I don't like it nor dislike it. It's just kind of there. It's not a big enough difference to warrant me, like, hating it or anything, but, like, you know, if they stayed what came before it, like, I wouldn't really care. I don't think anybody would have cared. His render itself, we still don't really know if this is, like, an accurate depiction of what will be in this new show, because we know, like, his frames here are white, and on here they're red. It makes sense that they're red on here because they never color in the running boards, but, like, why are they white here? Like, they've always been black, we all know that. I'm pretty sure this is the Wave 2 packaging. They made his boiler slightly brighter. I'm not sure if that was a good change, because on here it's still, like, a dark, rich green, which I really like. You can see his side rods, they look very reflective. That could either be, like, the goodness of 2026 CGI or AI, who knows at this point. Gotta love the background, the viaduct reminds me a lot of Magic Railroad. I mean, he's really nice. Like, there's not much to dislike about his packaging. You see his name nice and clear here. You got metal in 2 languages. Now, oh yeah, let's talk about that metal. That's kind of false advertising. Like 75 or even like 95% of this is plastic. The boiler, it picks up a lot more on camera. The boiler is the only part that's metal, and I think the chassis. But when we unbox him, we'll see. Let's look at the back. Now here's a big step up, something Mattel hasn't done for like God knows how long. They're actually advertising their other products on the back. It's very small. I will tell you, many of the products here we will be reviewing in other videos. But yeah, we got Henry here, James, Gordon, Thomas and Annie, and Toad and Oliver. Which I'm pretty sure the wording on these 2 are reversed. I'm looking off to the side. Yeah, Oliver and Toad, who I have. Yeah, it's said as Oliver and Toad, not Toad and Oliver, but you know, that's not like a glaring error or anything. The correct wheel configuration. I remember when these were first revealed, that was the big thing. It was that their faces are ugly, everything else is perfect. I don't hate his face, like I said, but like wow, this looks really good. The first thing I thought of was Season 5, when this was first revealed back in January or December, I think. The dark green, like that looks amazing. Like here's Ertl. This was made, I believe this is dated 1987. Yeah, so this is like right as Season 2 was probably finishing airing. Henry was still this like light lime green, and then for Season 5, they darkened a lot of them up. So Gordon, who is also a dark green in this, or a dark blue, sorry, in this new merchandise line, and presumably the new show. And then Henry, who is now also a dark green. And I think that makes them look much more realistic. I know it was likely mainly done to differentiate the colors between Percy, Oliver, Duck, etc., with Emily. But for Henry, I think he came out looking the best. He looks a lot more like a realistic steam engine. The correct wheel configuration really helps here. We can see this is like the direct predecessor. We have the 80th anniversary version, which I will also look at. It's still sealed. We won't be unboxing that, but we'll be comparing them. But that only added 1 trailing wheel at the front. But here, like, this is not how it's meant to be. Everyone knows that. Kids know that. Parents know that. Get out of here. This is all plastic. Pretty sure this is also all plastic, but this doesn't have a running board. And that's a big, like, step up. You know here, why does this have a running board and why is it a Minecraft dirt block? Like, so anyway, C3 Plus Mattel. I'm pretty sure this is the first line that was distributed by Mattel directly and not Fisher-Price. I don't know if that is the cause of many of the differences here, but I mean, it looks nice. You can see it's not really a warning, more of an indicator that this toy uses magnets. So we're going back to magnets instead of these hook couplers, which I think there's pros and cons to. Like, they like take along. We know they didn't stay together very well. Ertl had probably the weakest coupling system. I think magnets is a good in between, where like instead of the ugly fat take and play magnets from like 2014-ish, they look much more tasteful because the engines are overall a bigger scale to fit on this wooden track and the Trackmaster track. I don't have any of the new Easy Connect track, but it's the same width as wooden, so we'll be testing it here on the long and short curves. The dark blue, I noticed that Mattel is doing this dark blue coloring for a lot of their packaging. Most notably Paw Patrol, I know, has a lot of dark blue on there, and they're doing the same for Thomas. Personally, I think it looks a lot better on Thomas. It looks a lot more retro 80s. I don't know if that's what they're going for, but it's much better than just having like plain light blue, Thomas at the top, and the character's name on the side. This looks much more tasteful. This is much more advertiser friendly, I would say, because you immediately know this is someone from the show, this is someone I should get, etc., etc. So what is there really to say? I mean, we got some barcodes that are not barcodes. We got like, I don't know, recall codes at the top and available on YouTube Kids. So that's another thing. We don't know if this show will be exclusive to YouTube Kids. Well, we do. We know it'll be on Netflix, but we don't know much of other than that. We don't know if this is specifically referring to the episodes that they're making with these toys, like the Watch Out Thomas episodes. But if this new show is on YouTube Kids and on YouTube in general, it'll be a big success because then anyone can watch it at any time. Streaming, you know, great thing. Yay, hooray, modern age. But other than that, I think that's the packaging. I mean, I give it a 10 out of 10. I think it's amazing. One more thing I want to bring up is that this packaging is decently large. It's much bigger than what came before it. You can see it compared to my hand here. It takes up a lot of space, and it's been proven before that everything back here can fit tastefully into a good spot where you can add, you know, advertisements for other products in this series. And nowhere on here yet does it say who Henry is, what his job is, what type of engine he is. I think that is a big missed opportunity, and you would make a lot more sales that way if people, consumers, know who this engine is. Because, let's be real, Henry has not been relevant in the good, 8 years. In Bwubba, he was completely phased out, and All Engines Go, he didn't even speak. As far as I know, I didn't watch much of All Engines Go. But, yeah, so you can put on here, he is prone to agitation, he got rebuilt into a much stronger engine after his first crash with the Flying Kipper. He had many steaming issues when he first arrived. He's a failed Gretzky design, etc., etc. You can really entice people to want to buy this, but yet nowhere on here does it say that. Of course, for fans, and since most people are familiar with Thomas, if they're buying these products, they know who Henry is just by association. He's the one who was bricked up in the tunnel and died of starvation. That didn't mean to rhyme there, but it did. So yeah, that's an important thing that's missing here. On a lot of the boxes, I know that they do give little character bios of the characters. I know Thomas, they say he's sociable and ready for any job. That's good enough, I think. I know they did one for Percy. If Henry ever somehow gets a set, which I think is pretty unlikely, I think we're far past those days, I hope and pray that they do give Henry a good description, which will give us a good idea of what he'll be like in this new show. If Henry's a wimp in this new show, then, well, that would be sad. Anyway, let's open him up. So it just cut the bottom. We'll get him out soon. But one thing I'm just noticing is that it seems that they're trying to make the renders look more like the toys. I guess it could go both ways, but one thing I noticed is that his whistle up here, ignore the little rip there, that's been there, but his whistle is green. That is very interesting. I do not think he will have a green whistle in the show. I think they're just trying to make it look like that because that's how it is on here. Very interesting and bizarre reverse engineering. Another thing I noticed is that his funnel, very reflective, a lot less so than his smoke box. His tender is very slender on the box. I know it's cut off, but it's much thinner than it should be, even though it's a lot wider here. So they took elements and then tried to make it look more like the toy, instead of making the toy look more like the render. They give him the same face too. How interesting. Let's open them up. Okay, so this is going to be hard to do on camera. Cut the bottom so he can be put back in and easily displayed again. But I'm also holding the camera with one hand. I'm going to have to do a cut, I'm sorry. Okay, it was pretty hard. We finally got him out of his plastic prison. And here he is. Wow. So yeah, as you can see, he fits on the wooden track just fine. We'll be comparing him to the wooden models as well. In-hand appraisal. He feels very high quality, which is a lot more than what I can say with a lot of Mattel's products. The coal here, it's hard to see on camera, but there is definitely some green picking up through here, which makes me think that this isn't black plastic that is put on the tender. It's part of the mold, which makes sense if the whole tender is going to be plastic, but you can't be seeing green through there. It's coal. It doesn't really look like coal, I will say that. Yeah. A lot of these other companies did it much better. That's chipping, by the way. That's why you can see it through there, because it's metal. Mattel did take and play as well. Coal, it doesn't look great, but it looks much better. So that's kind of issue number one. This whole tender is light plastic. Here's also something major. They went out of their way to give all of these engines the correct wheel configuration on their main body, but not the tender. Why is that? Is there actually an explanation for that? Henry has his correct 260, which is different than Gordon, who has a 262, and a lot of companies, I think, got that wrong at some point. Mattel's always been pretty good with that when they do try. Like how here, and Take and Play, they gave Henry his wheel configuration. When they did Gordon in this style, they made him a 262, which makes sense with the spacing. But since these are a much higher scale, they're able to give them all the correct amount of wheels. But then they skip over the tender. It's not a huge deal, but I will say it's certainly noticeable. Moving on, like I figured, the boiler is the only metal part of this, as well as the chassis, or the undercarriage. I mean, that doesn't bother me too much, but it is false advertising. This says metal, it's advertised as a metal die-cast engine. This is the only metal part. That is what, like 20%? Maybe 30%? You can certainly see the color difference on camera, as this is plastic, the splashers are plastic, and this is metal. I digress, so let's move on. Like I said, the whistle, I believe that is meant to be the whistle. It is green. Not a huge deal, but they could have painted that in. Let's see. He looks very two-tone. He's not supposed to, obviously. As a steam engine, he's supposed to be all the same colors, besides the lining, of course. But since these are two different materials being used, the color is slightly different. Also, one thing I just noticed, which is awesome, is that they lined his splasher correctly. So, for those who don't know, in Season 1, when Henry got rebuilt after the Flying Kipper, they got rid of his splashers, which I don't think there was ever a reason given at the time. I don't know if it was a mistake. But I think by Season 2, they gave him back his splashers, but since his firebox sloped down like Gordon and ended here, his back splasher was cut off. So he always had this, like, half a semicircle, like a quarter circle here, and the lining just ended. And here, they actually bothered to finish off the lining, and I think that is really cool. That is good attention to detail. The first thing I noticed when these were revealed in December was that, wow, they have cylinders. That's awesome. That is really cool. Good on you, Mattel, for that. They're not filled in. They're very cylindrical, but they don't look like a piston cylinder. Like on here. Oh, I'm so sorry, Henry. You can see his cylinder doesn't even have lining. I don't know if it won't have lining in the show, but that is very much a square, whereas this is the shape of a cylinder. I hope I'm not confusing you, but I think you get what I mean. For the first time ever in the diecast range, we have, well, for the main characters anyway, we got swiveling bogies. Focus, please, thank you. That is a really, really nice detail. I think we were all confused at first, like how are they going to get around corners with these static chassis? Because I think we all thought that they were going to stick with something like this, which is what came before. Or not immediately, but came before, but a predecessor. But no, these bogies can turn, so presumably they can fit around this track. Let's see if he can run around this circle. So I will remove 2003 Henry and 1999 Henry, and let's see. So, okay, there is some stalling there. So sharp corners seem to not work great. I assume he will work well on these. Yeah. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, so on these, on the long curves, he goes fine. I know these aren't made for that track system, but they're all meant to be the same width. I'm pretty sure that is very intentional. Here, he does not run well on these. Now, that makes sense and also doesn't make sense. Because for one thing, they're not made for these tracks, but for another, they should all be cross-compatible. Because they got magnets like the Wooden Range, and they're meant to run on the Trackmaster track, or the Easy Connect track, as most are calling it now. So that is a big drawback. I don't think Wooden Railway will be a big problem, though, considering that it's phased out, it's completely discontinued. Hopefully it'll come back, but for now, there's ceased production. So most young kids growing up won't have it. So, yeah, it's not a huge deal. But the wooden train system as a whole is still very popular, even if Thomas isn't part of it. So wooden tracks will still be a thing that kids will try to run these on. And if it doesn't work on sharp corners, which are very common in sets, that might be an issue. I will say that. Here's a better example, by the way, of the splasher cutting off. You can see it here. It's a quarter of a circle. Here it's much closer to a half circle, and the lining continues. Good on you. His smoke box, I don't know if I'm seeing this wrong, but it looks kind of blue to me. I promise I'm not colorblind, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's black. And you can't have a light black, but you know what I mean. It looks like an off black. And I don't know if they're trying to match the render where it looks reflective, but that's something I'm noticing. I feel like it's a bit big. Like, I feel like they can take off maybe, like, right here. You still need a little bit of an area behind this neck support, I'm pretty sure they're called. But yeah, it's a bit big. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, the tenders. So, these, for the first time since Ertl, are permanently attached. That is not an advantage nor a disadvantage. That is something that is just kind of there. And I have zero problem with that. I don't think tenders going missing was a big problem. I haven't heard anything like that. But once you lose your tender, you lose half of the engine, essentially. And an engine can't run without a tender, and people know that. Or they can't run very far without a tender. So I think that is a good change. The coupling they use looks very accurate to the CGI series tender couplings. You watch the episode Love Me Tender, you can see how they look. Overall, Henry looks very good. He's not perfect. I will say that. He's nowhere near perfect. The counterweights on the wheels were a nice touch. If these had side rods, it would look much better. There is a lot of space there, and there's space to put a side rod. It's a lot more noticeable on Thomas, but I think with the counterweights, it would have looked much better. Let's see. Okay, his face. On the toy, I actually don't mind it. On the render, I don't really mind it either. It's just kind of there. Like, it's not bad. It's not fantastic. That, like, if I saw this on anything else, I wouldn't immediately think that looks like Henry. I will say that. His eyebrows are huge. That's not a huge deal. But you can see on the Ertl one here, they're a much more normal size. Let's see. His eyes are much more towards the top of his head, which is how most of these are. I noticed the Ertl one, they put them very much more so in the middle, like a human face. Thomas has always had them more towards the top, so that makes sense, that works. He's smirking with one eyebrow raised. It seems like they're pushing stuff like that more. They're trying to make him look like, I don't know, cool, I guess, for lack of a better term. I know for the 80th anniversary, Thomas had that. A couple other characters had that. Duck has that for the motorized for the 80th. So it's an interesting thing to be pushing. I don't think it really matters too much. Some people will probably have a problem with it. I don't. You can really see the color difference here if I put him here. So here is the Ertl Henry, which is a light green. This is very much a darker green. On camera, this looks a lot more like a mint green with a very thin boiler. His boiler is much more medium, I guess, on here, because what you'll notice in later reviews, Gordon's boiler is huge, and James is a lot thinner, and Henry is probably the most accurate. It's a very middle size. I guess a very mid-size would be a better way to say it. That looks fine. Henry's boiler size I don't have a problem with at all. What I do think is interesting, what they easily could have done, is giving him cab details. So here is the Take and Play Henry by Mattel, around 2012-ish. Take away his tender. They gave him, and many other tender engines, cab detailing, and they easily could have done that here. Why didn't they? I don't know. They had a lot of room. They easily could have. It's not like it'll be hard to cut into, because this is plastic. This is metal, and they were able to do it here. Same company, by the way. So that is something. Let's straight up compare him to his predecessors. So let's start with Ertl. So here's Ertl right here. Very nice. They gave him red side rods. There was no reason to do that. I think that is just like a mistake. I don't know why they did that. And they continued it to his front leading wheel, or his back leading wheel on the front side. You know what I mean? I don't think that's intentional. I don't think it's supposed to look like that. It's just where it attaches. Let's see. No colored boiler stripes. That doesn't bother me. It bothers some people. I don't see it as a huge problem. At least they're molded. Very nice classic face. His cab windows are very low. Extremely low. That is a dud. That shouldn't be there. Overall, though, Earl Henry is fantastic. His tender is permanently attached. I never had a problem with that with the Ertl engines, sorry. Because I feel like these are much more of... They're definitely toys, but they feel a lot more like models, something you'd put on a shelf. And the tender being disconnectable, I guess. I don't know if that's a word. It doesn't really matter. It wouldn't need to happen. I think it looks fine. It looks accurate. 3 wheels, of course. The coupling system for these wasn't a huge thing. They had to change it later because they kept breaking and because they weren't working. And you couldn't connect engines together. You could only connect them to rolling stock. So, yeah, magnets are certainly better in that aspect. So let's put New Henry here. Immediately noticing a size difference. Let's see. So the wheels on this are much more loosely going on. You can see that here. This is a lot sturdier. Even though this is plastic and this is metal, the wheels are not going to fall off of this. They might crack eventually in a couple years from like rough play maybe, but they're not just going to fall off, which I feel like these probably could in like, even just from like sitting on a shelf for too long, you know what I mean? Like rusting away. This Henry, I think these are meant to be the cylinders. They're not painted. These aren't painted either, but they're much more detailed. You can see a piston in there, I believe. There's no articulation on this one. This is one static mold. It is metal down here. This whole body is metal. The only plastic part is the side rods and the running board. And the face, of course. On the front of this Henry, you can see the frames and the buffers are not painted. That is also true for this one. I believe this did have stickers at one point, though. It's just when it came into my possession, they had long been gone. Let's see what else. I believe that's pretty much it. The boiler is much wider. There's no whistle on here. Well, there is, actually. I just noticed that. It's very small. I don't even know if that's meant to be a whistle or if that's a molding error. So yeah, that's it compared to the Ertl Henry. I think I still like this one better, but I haven't gotten used to this one yet. It's been like 15 minutes. So let's look at it compared to the Take and Play Henry, which came a couple years later after Take Along. So after Ertl came Take Along. I don't have a Take Along Henry, but I have the next best thing. Here is the Mattel Take and Play Henry. It's from around 2012-ish. I remember getting this back in the day. This will be interesting because these are the first two that are made by the same company. So you can see how much they changed in around like 14 years. I mean, first of all, this is obviously much bigger to fit on the wider tracks. Take and Play had its own track at the time, which is pretty good. Nothing special. It's pretty good. Henry. So, the face on Take and Play version, I was never really a huge fan of. It's fine. It looks kind of goofy, to be honest. I think it's because its eyes are huge. Like, they're gigantic. I think this Henry has a better face. Let's look at them from the side. So, this will be interesting. Once again, noting the much lighter green of the Take and Play Henry. Let's see. So, the wheel configuration is the same besides the tender. But I think it's spaced out much better here. Henry needs that big space underneath his cab. That's very integral. I've always noticed that. Here, he has his back driver wheel underneath his cab. Driving wheel, sorry. I think the splashers are good on both. This Henry, it's kind of like square right here. It cuts off at the cab. The printing doesn't look the best. Here, I think it looks better. Of course, we have the rivets on this one. I don't mind the rivets. I know a lot of people don't like them. I think they're fine if they're done well. This is the first time Henry has ever had rivets, because in Wubba, he didn't, for some reason. Oh gosh, that was a sad time. Anyway, the tenders, I'm giving the tender advantage to this one. Even though it has a running board, I feel like the overall shape is better. This one is way too long, and the divot here is way too small. This one has the doors of the tender, the right amount of wheels, realistic cull. This one's tender isn't bad. It's just like, it's not how it should be ideally. Is that a crack? I just noticed that. Is that a crack here, a scratch? Can't really see that in the light. I'm not sure what that is. I promise I didn't do that. The magnets, these magnets corroded or something very easily. You can see all the rust there. You know, I obviously didn't play with these very roughly. Like, it has a few dings, but it's not like destroyed. But look at these magnets, the condition of them. Yeah, ugh, that's nasty. Hopefully they fix that with these. I don't think these magnets will corrode very easily. I haven't seen that even with the newer Take and Play, with the big round magnets like these. But yeah, that's the major disadvantage here, the magnets. Even though they're smart in two-way, Mattel didn't do them very well. When Learning Curve and Take Along, they were produced very well. They didn't corrode, but when Mattel stepped in, a lot of bad things happened, including the magnets. The cylinder here, very nice detailing. Lacking here, it's still there, it's just, you know, we established that earlier. The boiler bands here are three-dimensional, and on here they're painted on. I'm pretty sure being three-dimensional is more realistic and more accurate, but they're not super noticeable here. Like, I'm pretty sure they're going to be 3D on his model in the show, but it's not so much to where you would really notice. So I think I'll give the boiler advantage here, mostly for the color and for the handrails. So the handrails here, I'm sorry, not the handrails, the boiler bands. The handrails here are 3D and they're painted on here. I'm sorry, they are 3D here, but they're not painted on the smoke box. On here, they're not even on the smoke box. So that one's hard because this one is a lot more squished. This one is a lot more elongated. Sorry, the tenders are toppled over. That's hard. I feel like the handrail advantage should go rightfully to this one. And they're longer here. They're just unpainted. So yeah, I feel like I'm going to say, yeah, the handrails are better over here than over here. Okay, moving on. The faces we've talked about. I think this face is much better than this one. This one looks very small to me. I know it's overall a smaller scale, but the boiler is very, very thin. Here it's much wider, even though this is considered a medium size. Let's see. The buffers are painted. That's more than what I can say for this one. But nothing else, no lamp irons or frames. They're all left unpainted. That's hard. I feel like... Yeah, so the backs of the tenders, same sort of deal. Since this one doesn't have a running board, the buffers are just molded onto the tender itself. They're painted here, they're unpainted here. I feel like aesthetically this one just looks better from the back, even though this is technically more realistic without a running board. This one's a lot more colorful as a result. But like I said, I love the dark color of this one. I just wish it wasn't all like two-tone patchwork kind of thing because of the plastic and metal. Yeah, this is tricky. So I think overall I'm going to say this one is better. This one's more accurate. But once again, these were made for two different shows. This is the Nitrogen era CGI, and this is this new 2026 project. So, yeah, I think I'm going to say Take and Play is slightly better, but not by much. This one is still very nice. This one is slightly more detailed. Okay, so let's compare them next to this one. I don't have an indentures, Henry. This is ugly, first of all. It's the Trackmaster Push-Along Henry, because Mattel thought that was a good idea, combining those two brands. I don't think it's an inherently bad idea. Just the title of it, Trackmaster Push-Along, that just sounds like all sorts of confusion, because when you think Trackmaster, you would think it would be powered, motorized, have a battery, but no, these are push-along. You push them along, believe it or not. So it's like, yeah, from a marketing standpoint, I don't think that worked very well, but overall, let's look aesthetically. Well, immediately I'm going to say this one is better. I think that's pretty obvious. Ooh, okay, so the face is actually very nice on this one. I will say that. He's very short. And I don't mean in length, I mean in height. Let's look at these side by side. Yeah, you can very well see it. Yeah, very short. Height advantage and length advantage definitely goes to this one. Let's see on this side. Yeah, so splashers are done horribly on this one. Look at the gap there. Much more tasteful here. The lining, way too thick on this one. Way nicer here. Handrails painted on, it's 3D. It doesn't continue to the smoke box, but I don't think that matters too much. Smoke box is significantly smaller than the boiler. At least on one side. Wow, that's an error. Not so much here. Tenders. Both of these tenders are flawed, but this one is worlds better. Let's look at this. Like I said earlier, looks like a Minecraft dirt block made completely of plastic. The running board, not really. The running board, which for some reason it has, is put on backwards. That is on across all of these. Yeah, so the buffer is poked out on the wrong end. Ugh. Looks like it has the steamroller wheels. Like, both of these wheels are pushed very close together, and it's very, very short. Why is it so short? Of course, it has the Trackmaster couplings. Yeah, I will say there was much more metal on this one than on this one. The cab and boiler are completely metal. This is entirely made of plastic. Yeah. The wheels, very noticeably a different color because, of course, it's plastic. I don't expect metal wheels, but it's something to point out nonetheless. Chassis is plastic. I was feeling this a bit more. I feel like the chassis is actually plastic on this one. Let's look at the bottoms. So, especially because it's Blubba, you'd have to be very knowledgeable to know the name of this one because it's there, but it is very, very small. At least it's painted. This one, I feel like, though, still looks much better. I love the little Thomas ticket there. And Henry on the bottom. Almost surreal seeing stuff dated 2026 Mattel. Like, wow. It's a big upgrade. So yeah, get out of here. Nope, get out of here, I said. Thank you. Now we can look at the 80th Henry, which I still have sealed in here. I know a lot of people love this version. I don't hate it. It's just not one of my favorites. So it's very small. You can see compared to James here, he's very small. Compared to the new 2026 one, I mean, this one's obviously better, I feel like. One thing they got right here is no running board on the tender, but in turn, that makes the tender very small. It's essentially, let me try to find it. It's essentially this, just without the running board. And this is a tad taller. And it's like the girth of the wheels shrunk and then made the top part taller without a running board, if that makes sense. It looks fine, it's just very small compared to the engine, and the engine itself is missing its front, or one of its sets of front wheels. The side rods help. I think that helps a lot to fill in the negative space up here. It's not as glaring here, but if this didn't have side rods, there would be a lot of empty space. I love the separately fitted roof here and here. That's something Thomas didn't get until 2026. It's missing a splasher. That's the first thing I noticed when this was revealed. That's a problem. Even if it's half a splasher, it's still missing. The cylinder is way more detailed here. If not, it's a little bit too far forward, I feel like. This one has the better positioning, it's just not detailed. I think the smoke box of this one is a much more appropriate size than this one here. Now the face. I feel like the face here, I've seen better pictures of it. Like, it's harder to see here because it's in the box, but I feel like this one's face is fine. Both of these faces are just fine, I feel like. They're not anything special. I still feel like the biggest advantage of this one was having the good face. And of course the Ertl one has a great face, even though it's not based off the CGI. Let's see. So I feel like the dome is a little bit far back. We'll compare it to the wooden ones later, but I feel like those ones have much better dome positioning. I don't know what's the most accurate. I mean, we can look at the render. Yeah, honestly, yeah. Actually, yeah, that's fine. Never mind. The dome is in the right spot. Other than that, we can see the splashers. I mean, sorry, not the splashers. The rivets on the splashers and on the cab on this one. So this was the first time Henry got rivets. The wheels are around the same. These ones have counterweights. These ones don't. Yeah, overall, I'm giving the advantage to this one. I think this one's better. 80th one, it's not bad. It just needs to be a lot longer. I think I should compare Henry to his Thomas Wooden Railway versions as well. As discussed earlier, these new diecast engines fit on the same width of track, and since wooden train systems are still massively popular, I'm sure new engines will be running along wooden railways as well. We know large engines like Henry, presumably Gordon, don't run around sharp corners, but we can still see how else they're compatible and incompatible. So let's break them down. One thing I think we should discuss immediately here is the difference in magnets. So these take-and-play and take-along engines had smart magnets, as I'm sure you all know, meaning that they can connect to each other either way and still roll. And this carried over to wooden railway, of course. So they can connect front to front or front to back. Or back to back, of course, as well, depending on how you play. Now, one of the major faults with these new take-and-play engines, or newer, I should say, you might be wondering why I have Thomas. Well, one of the major faults was that these magnets weren't inherently wrong, but the polarity was reversed compared to the much more popular wooden railway at the time. This means that they can only connect front to front or back to back. So, you couldn't have a consist moving in one direction like this, because Mattel makes some very odd decisions sometimes. Now let's see how this compares to this new Henry. And look at that. That's so simple, but that's going to elevate a lot of play and a lot of displays for a lot of modelers or kids, etc., etc. This means that in addition to running on the same track, they can also pull wooden railway rolling stock. This of course isn't exactly proportional, but hey, at least it's compatible. Anyway, let's get to the actual comparisons. Starting off here is a 1999 wooden railway Henry. Now, I know this Henry has become controversial in recent times for probably being the least accurate out of the original 1992 roster. My thoughts on it is like, yeah, I can definitely see where people are coming from. Something about this Fowler tender, I don't know, it's like charming to me. I know it's very inaccurate, but several toy lines had it. And like, I don't know, it's kind of cool to see it, even if it's not accurate. Anyway, face comparison. Yeah, I think this one here, it's definitely more accurate to the model series. If we're just comparing this to the promo art, I mean, obviously this one is probably much more accurate. As we discussed, they probably just made the promo art look like the toy, so there's that. Going right along, of course, they never made a blue Henry, they never made a Henry in its old shape, so these are all based on relatively the same, references. Definitely the more accurate dome goes to this one. I don't know if it's in the right spot, it seems to be according to the promo art. This is more in the middle, and it's much taller. His funnel seems to be the correct size on each of these. Now, this one's a bit taller, so it's really up to preference. I think this one is more accurate in that scale. Of course, this is going for being more accurate to Henry himself, whereas this, they've always been trying to be simple is better, of course, until Mattel took over in 2022 with the new line. I know they've been running since 2013, however, we all know everything got a major glow up in recent years. Sorry for that little tangent there. The number 3, much more accurate over here, of course. The amount of wheels, much more accurate here. This isn't decisive of which one I like better. Of course, these were made to fill out different goals. But it's still interesting to see, since these will be playing together, which one stacks up against the other one. But I think I'm going to have to give the win to here. Let's move on to the next one. Here is a 2002 wooden railway Henry. I'm sure you can probably tell this is my childhood Henry. He's pretty scraped up. Now, before we begin this comparison, one thing I want to ask. Is this a factory error? Now, you might be confused what I'm pointing at. Henry's running board, you can see it on this one. It dips down at the cab, and I've seen every other version of this wooden Henry I've seen, the red lining has dipped down a little bit as soon as it gets to this red square, as you can see over here. And for here, on both sides, it continues to each end. So, what do we make of that? Someone explain that. Anyway, how do they compare? Well, of course, this one is much more detailed than the previous one. Of course, it's pretty simplistic, as it should be. Let's look at them side by side. Much more light green, of course, we've established across all of these. Let's see. I think the number font is better over here. It looks much bolder. This one is more dull because the plastic itself is more dull. Also, look, you can already see a scratch right there. Quality control, Mattel, come on. The splashers, of course, they're much more squished here, but they're in a good spot there. I mean, if they weren't going to carve them out of wood, they look good there. Of course, more accurate wheel configuration. Much of this carried over from the previous. The handrail, let's see. So this handrail doesn't go to the smoke box, and this one does, even though there's a lack of paint on the smoke box itself. So that's interesting. I'd have to look more in depth at Henry himself to see if that's accurate. Of course, on the promo art here, it's more accurate to go to the smoke box. This one's been missing its eyebrows, so we can't really compare that here, even though they're very thick right here. Well, it's probably much thicker than they should be. The, what do you call it? The dip down here, the little ridge, it's much more pronounced on the literal block of wood, which makes sense because it's wood, you're carving it. It would be hard to do that in a much more fine way. On the plastic, since this has more of a tender floor, of course, it's probably more accurate here, even though I think they had the right call in bringing this down further, because there's going to be no detail. Of course, there's no cab detail, and there's no detail in the front of the tender. So overall, for accuracy, this one I think wins. For the wooden railway, maybe I'm just biased because this is my childhood Henry, but you know, I think this is my favorite wooden model. Overall, still thinking this one, of course, for accuracy. I just said that, but hey, you know, it's really up to preference. Let's move to the last one. Okay, last and certainly not least, we got the 2022 Mattel Wooden Henry. So it's the only wooden Henry I have that's made by Mattel. Therefore, these are both made by the same company. This will be probably the most interesting comparison because this one has way more details than the previous wooden Henrys had. Like the, I know that's not the safety valve, but I'm not going to get the name right, I'm sorry. The gnome's in the gnome? What? The dome is in the right place, according to this and according to the promo art, because it's further back. This one has the correct firebox. I guess the other ones did too, but this one's much more pronounced. Splashers are free. Oh my god, I can't talk. The splashers are 3D, and the wheel configuration is actually, this is one of the few 2022 engines with the exact correct wheel configuration, which is the same as this one, barring the tender. Color, of course, I'm going to give it to this one. I love that color more, even though it's more two-tone. I think the dark green looks, or works much better. This one has the half splasher that doesn't continue the lining down. Let's see. Do they all have the same amount of boiler stripes? They do. Okay, that's good. This one's coal, and tender as a whole looks much better. It almost looks like the 2022 Thomas, where it just looks like a monster truck, kind of. But I think it looks fine. This, I think, is my favorite wooden Henry. The face, let's see. So this one's much more reminiscent of Henry in the Brenner and Bubba era for the little bit of it that he was in. This one looks much more casual. I think I like this face more than this one. This one, of course, has buffers. They're not 3D, but that's not expected. Of course, the running board isn't colored in. That's also not expected. Has a little bit of side rod detail. This one doesn't. I mean, this one doesn't really add much. Let's see, the cab window is 3D. Here it's not, but it does have the firebox glow. So there's pros and cons to both. This one doesn't have a whistle either. Doesn't have a tender. It doesn't have like the floor of the actual tender. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like these two are like very similar in the way I would like compare them. I think I do like this one better. This one, surprisingly, it's a lot longer, but of course it runs on the tracks. I mean, it's made for these tracks, but it runs around curves just fine. Sharp curves or long curves. This one, of course, doesn't. We established. It derails. I think this one also has a long smoke box. So it was really the 2022 Thomas Wooden Railway range that started the trend of giving these, the three main ranges being diecast, wooden, and motorized. This one started the trend of giving them all the like correct details of the CGI series. Let's see, does this one have rivets? I don't remember. Yeah, it does. So this is one of the first times actually Henry had rivets. even though he didn't have them in Wubba. So, for the 80th anniversary, we got the updated diecast, which eventually bloomed into this, which is much better. I don't know why I said bloomed. I meant to say evolved. And the 80th anniversary Motorized didn't have Henry, but it updated most of the characters from the Revolution. So, yeah, I mean, this one is overall more accurate than the 80th version, I would think. I think these two are about the same. Of course, they couple together the right way now, or front to back, which works better than front to front or back to back. So yeah, I don't know which one I'd give the advantage to. They're both about the same. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say about this new Henry. Overall, fantastic. I think I'm going to have to give it an 8 out of 10, or maybe even an 8.5 out of 10. It's very, very solid. Solid is what I would use to describe this. The colors are a bit off because it's plastic and metal. Of course, there needs to be more metal, but I'm very excited for this new series. So, yeah, hopefully Henry will have a bigger role in 2026. I love what they're doing with the merchandise. Most of them are very accurate. Some of them fall flat a little bit, mostly in the face, but at least all their bodies are accurate. If not, everything's covered. Even if everything's not colored in, at least all the necessary detail is there. And, you know, I'm at least just glad Henry's relevant again. To end off this video proper, I wanted to see how Henry will do on a track that he's perhaps more suited for. Now, the Toy Fair video confirmed that the Easy Connect track is directly compatible with this Motorized / Trackmaster 2 Trackmaster Revolution track. So let's just see how Henry goes. We have the Motorized, I believe they're CL, curve longs, and the shorter curves. I don't know the technical term. So we can see how he runs around. You might be wondering why there's a Shock Thomas. Well, we're going to see if he can also run around by himself with a bit of help. Anyway, goes fine here. One thing I will say is these engines do not sound good on these tracks. I mean, they fit on it, but like the wooden track sounds way better with them. It's a lot quieter. It's because these tracks are full of ridges. Anyway. Oh, we derailed a bit there. Perhaps not as compatible as they think, or as they're advertising. Switches might be a problem. I mean, this isn't the track they're made for, but it's the track that they're advertised as being compatible with. Anyway. Oh, wow. He's derailing. He's even derailing at the short curves. Henry. Come on. That's going to bring its score down a little bit. I mean, wow. I think the jet engine will still be able to push him around, but wow. Okay, so he runs fine on the straight and fine on these longer curves. At the points, he's derailing. These short curves, he's also, well, he made it around that time. It's very tight. Extremely tight. Okay, let's give it a little running session with the jet engine, see how he goes. Alright, so clearly this Trackmaster track isn't working out for Henry, but I have an idea. Hold on. Okay, this was my idea. Now I'm pretty sure it will work, considering that this track works with pretty much everything. Now, of course, this is the Superstation track that came out in 2017, and this came out in 2026. So they're not made for each other, but it's the I guess they're technically the rails. They're supposed to look like rails in the middle that aren't as tall. So that makes the world of difference. Please don't fall over on me. Let's see if he can at least make it around just with the push of the magic hand. Okay, he made it around. Hallelujah. And these are still sharp curves, so it really is just the middle part that slowed him down, that caused him to derail. So, I guess, if you don't have the Easy Connect track and don't plan to, if you have a Superstation, you can use the Superstation track. It's crazy how compatible this is. I'm pretty sure, like, O-Scale fits on this, like, the Diecast engines fit on this. I think even the freaking, like, Pixar cars fit on this, so it's like, get a Superstation if you want everything to be unified. Anyway, I'm not advertising anything for that. Let's see how this works. Still extremely loud, if you can even hear me, but this is a lot smoother. Okay, well, I'm going to put the camera on some angles, some positions, and we'll have a proper running session on this little oval. Hello everyone, I just wanted to thank you for the support on this channel recently. When I released my video finding the new Thomas merge in a store, my sub count more than doubled. Never expected that video to do as well as it did, and since you watched till the end of this extremely long video, you must be invested in what I have cooking. So a like and sub would be greatly appreciated. You don't have to, but it helps a lot. I have a huge Thomas collection and many interesting and obscure items. I would appreciate any and all suggestions of what you would like to see between these big 2026 reviews. I also want to mention that I have a gaming and speedrunning channel too if you're into that kind of thing, and you can find the link to it in the description. Thanks for watching and have a good one.